What's going on, everybody? My name is Julian Cameron, the host of Straight Talk. Like this video, share this video, and let me know what you think in the comments. Okay, so the Equality Act. Let's talk about it. First off, last week we talked about the pandemic of pornography. We went over some stats and went over the adverse effects of it, and we talked about how to be set free from the addiction of pornography. Very important episode. Give that a watch as soon as you can. All right, so the Equality Act. What is it? Well, earlier, back in February, the end of February, the House of Representatives voted to pass this act, which is a bill that would ban discrimination against people based on sexual orientation and gender identity. It would also substantially expand the areas to which those discrimination protections apply. Right? It's actually a bill that Biden said when he was campaigning that it would be one of his top legislative priorities in the first 100 days of his presidency. Okay, so the act would also amend the 1964 Civil Rights Act that explicitly prevents discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. So let's see, what that really boils down to is it's going to expand the Civil Rights Act, and other acts, not to discriminate on age, race, on different things, but they're wanting to roll in that we don't want to discriminate based on sexual orientation or gender identity. That's essentially what the main speaking points of the Equality Act are. And another thing about this act is that it would be nationally applied to the entire country, and it would be applied to states that currently have no anti-discrimination laws in place, and those are about 27 states in America. So, in the name of equality, this sounds like a good thing, right? Is the Equality Act going to be as equal as it says it is? Well, let's read between the lines here. So what does amending the 1964 Civil Rights Act look like with regard to this bill? Well, here are some instances that would take place if this bill were to pass. Here are just a few. So faith-based hospitals and insurers would be forced to provide gender transition therapies that violate their religious beliefs. Children could seek to change their gender without parental knowledge or consent. Faith-based adoption and foster care agencies would be forced to place children with same-sex couples or lose their licenses. The act would dismantle sex-specific facilities and sports and other spaces. Right? As a result of this, biological females would be forced to compete in sports with biological males who identify as something else for athletic scholarships. right? Sexual assaults on girls in bathrooms and other situations which have already taken place in areas that of the country where this is tried to be implemented, think Target, but on a national level, these kinds of incidents would escalate. Right? Some other instances are faith-based schools and businesses would be forced to violate their beliefs regarding homosexual activity or face fines or closure. Right? Churches that rent their facilities to the public could be forced to rent them for same-sex marriages and other LGBTQ-related events. And another thing is that abortion would be protected under this act as well, right? If a health care provider refused to perform an abortion, they would be guilty of discrimination under this act. Remember the Christian baker that was sued because he didn't want to bake a cake that was offensive to his belief system? Well, he ended up winning the case after it made its way to the Supreme Court. But if this bill were in place, he would not have, or they would not have. So one little statistic here before I move on here is, according to a Gallup poll conducted in 2017, 4.5% of all American adults identify as LGBTQ. So is this act really equal? Is this the Equality Act? Well, it comes to no surprise to anybody that, we're in this cancel culture, situation right now. We're in this world where people want to cancel those that they disagree with. Right? The world has adopted this lie that you must cancel or hate or not be friends with anybody that thinks differently from you. So do businesses have the right to refuse service? There are anti-discrimination laws in place that protect us from being discriminated against based on race, color, or disability. So it's a bit tricky, but as long as a business has a policy which can and is applied to everyone, then they can refuse service. I want to say this, I am no lawyer, right? But, it's a tricky situation. So it might be a case-by-case kind of situation, But that's what the act is all about, and those are some of the implications of this act that we will face as a nation if it comes to pass. So is this Equality Act really all that equal? What do we do? What's the fair and just thing to do? I would say that that's something that every person needs to decide based upon their beliefs and convictions. Just know that this is taking place right now. It was passed by the House of Reps. It still needs to pass the Senate. It's not signed into bill or into law yet. But if it's signed into law, expect to see a very different America. Do with this information what you will, but every person needs to at least be aware of what's going on currently. So that's all I have for this week. Make sure to like this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Share it to your friends. My name is Julian Cameron, and we'll be back next week for another episode of Straight Talk.